there was a young man named Gabe. And Gabe went to Kol Nidre services one evening. It was the evening of Kol Nidre services. And after services, he went to bed. And while he was asleep, he had a dream. And he had a dream where a voice came to him and said, Gabe, tomorrow, I need you to go to this hill and stand on the hill and wait. And if you wait long enough, there will be a special treasure delivered right to you. Well, when Gabe woke up in the morning, that was worth trying. So away he went to the hill, and he stood on the hill and he waited. And he waited, and he waited. And nothing happened. That was a bit of a bummer. So Gabe left and didn't think much of it until a year later, when, without a dream this time, at Kol Nidre services, Gabe thought, maybe I got the year wrong. Maybe I just was there a year early. So I'm going to go back to the hill and see what happens. So the next morning, of course, he wakes up and he goes to the hill, and he stands and he waits, and he stands and he waits, and he stands and he waits. And then, in the distance, he sees someone walking towards him. It's a young woman. She arrives at the hill, and they introduce themselves to one another. And he asks, what are you doing here? And she says, well, I had this dream that if I came to this hill, an incredible treasure would be delivered to me. So I'm here to wait. Well, Gabe didn't necessarily plan on sharing the treasure, but, the two of them could wait together. So they stood, and they waited, and nothing happened. Well, they shook hands and departed, and they waited another year, and without talking to one another, they decided, maybe we got the year wrong again. And so this time, early that next morning, they both arrived at the hill at the same time, and they greeted each other happily, and they stood there, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited. And while they waited, they got to chatting and got to enjoy spending time together. And then finally, off in the distance, they saw two more people approaching them. And they introduced themselves and got to know one another, and they realized that all four of them had had the same dream. They were all waiting for this treasure to magically appear. And so they waited together, because what better way to spend the time than standing together and chatting, getting to know one another, exchanging pleasantries. And at the end of the day, when no treasure was discovered, alas, they went home. Year after year, Gabe and this growing group of friends kept meeting at the top of the hill. And every year they would stand and they would wait and they would look around them and they would notice more and more people kept having this dream. More and more people kept thinking that if they arrived at this hill at just the right moment, that some kind of treasure would arrive. Now, it required incredible patience to continue to wait all of those years. But Gabe found that waiting wasn't so bad when you were surrounded by other people who similarly were waiting for something wonderful to happen, and who each and every year you got to know a little bit more, and you got to build that sacred bond. Well, over and over and over again, they came and they waited and they talked and they got to know one another, until finally they kind of forgot about the treasure, which you would think would be the whole point. You come to this mountain, this hill, to stand and wait for treasure, and yet at a certain point, standing together became so wonderful that they looked forward to seeing one another more than they looked forward to the possibility of that treasure. Well, finally, one year, Gabe decided to go on Kol Nidre night instead of going early. He had some stuff to set up. He was going to bring some party favors so that everyone could enjoy the next morning. Maybe set up some chairs so some of the folks who had gotten a little older could sit instead of just standing and waiting. And when he got there, he got really, really tired all of a sudden. And he decided he was going to take a little nap. So he laid down right there on the hill, and he took a nap. And while he was napping, a voice came to him and said, Gabe, if you stand here tomorrow, a beautiful treasure will be there waiting for you. And this time, Gabe had the presence of mind to do a little negotiating. And Gabe said, well, you've told me that oh so many years ago. You've told so many people that throughout the years, and yet we haven't seen any treasure show up. We keep waiting. We're happy to wait, but we keep waiting for this treasure to materialize, and it doesn't seem to happen. And the voice responds with that little bit of a hint of a smile that you can sometimes hear in someone's voice, saying, but did you meet all those people? Did you make those friends? Did you celebrate each year as you grew older and had so much in your life to be grateful for, and got to share that with all of these new people who were there and happy to celebrate you and happy to cry with you when life got hard and were there for you every step of the way? Is it possible that that was the treasure I meant? And so the next day, Gabe was there on the hill with all of his new friends, all of those people who had spent those years waiting for the treasure. And this time he wasn't waiting, because the treasure was right there, surrounding him, making him feel loved, and celebrating all of the moments that life had to offer. Thank you for being our treasure. Shana Tova.